Welcome back to the Oracle section of today's episode of 1320 Time Stream. So we're going to spam all the signs here for you. We got the cosmic wind. We got the cosmic earth. We have the cosmic wheel bridger, the cosmic human, and the magnetic storm. Okay, cosmic earth. It's a really interesting one. The one that really comes up, like in defining kind of that, like I endure in order to communicate. It's like the earth, in many ways, is like the blueprint of the mind, the blueprint of the complex structure. It is the navigator. The consciousness that can actually manage the labyrinth. In some way intuitively knows the entirety and all the complexities of the labyrinth itself. And so in some way, the helping power of the cosmic wind, the helping power of the wind in general, is that energy that can, it's like, because we're guided by that death energy, the earth is like that energy that can evolve. It can change, it can let go, it can re-show up, it can transform. Not unlike the world bridger, because the world bridger is all about death. It's like I endure in order to die kind of thing. As I endure, much death will occur. And yes, sure, there's, there can be an energy of like actual death, like a human being dying or a pet dying. But on a more conceptual level, we're talking about like all the micro or little deaths. And so it's like in the aspect of that wind or that spirit, in some way, this is the cosmic spirit. It's like we're navigating the nuances of that. And so the earth is kind of showing us the blueprint of that. Another way, perhaps, too, is it's like going outside and feeling the earth and the connection to the earth and the wind and the kind of secrets that they hold for each other. The death I find, or the death, well, pretty much, and, I'm not going to correct myself. And intuitively, my body knows that that sign is death, though very kind of politically correct, we would call it the world bridger, the transformer or the bridger of worlds. But very classically, all the way back to the ideas within the Mayan and the Aztec phenomenology of the 1320 systems, the Nahuatl, all things like that, death, Simi, Kame, is what this energy represents. It also in many ways represented the underworld. And so today specifically, because we have it as the cosmic wind, that death energy, that letting go, that bridging of worlds energy will be very prevalent for us. And so it is a really amazing time to allow ourselves to go into that death energy, to allow ourselves to take a moment to really observe what comes up for us around that energy. It's a very good portal to process or allow into our lives some of that death energy. And I think one of the main reasons for this is simply because of the different kind of boundaries that we have as people and the kind of relationship that death may have for us. And that death energy, whatever is represented by that in our lives, because it may be different for each and every one of us, especially when we're working with archetypes, as each archetype, regardless of how, kind of blatant it can be representing itself, is different for everyone in either big or small ways, either subtle or major ways. And so what we have here is an invitation to go into those places in ourselves, which is marked by death, that may be uncomfortable for us. And take a look at it, because death gets easier and easier to embody. And the more and more we see its function in our daily lives, the easier and easier we can embrace the energies and nuances of death as an act of renewal, as an act of rebirth. Because those ideas, when they become present just at the moment of a major death, a loss of a friend, this or the other, when people are consoling another being and whatnot, and these concepts come up, they can seem like really weak compensations that attempt to, replace a really major loss. Now, at a moment like this, especially when you compare the guiding energy to the main energy being the wind, which is also spirit, the cosmic spirit, things like that, death begins to make more sense. And it is because death, like in the concept death, the only thing that is changing is the embodiment. The only thing that is changing is like the physicalness. The spirit of a thing will never essentially change because it is the truth. It is only the form or the container. And while this may sound maybe even more conceptual to the physical aspects of death, I only use that as a foundation because death is giving us an opportunity to witness the spirit in things. As death whittles away like water to a mountain over trillions of years, or let's just say, thousands of years, that the thingness, the artifactness gets whittled away, gets dissolved. But the spirit of it remains. And this is very key because death is the support system of the spirit. It allows the spirit to continue being vibrant. Because in an aspect like we're living in here in our world, the spirit, even though it is a vibrant and eternal thing, because of the way we identify with our construct, that our spirit, at least for the time of our incarnation, can be dampened, can become depressed, can become trapped, enslaved, contained. And so all of the little deaths are the way of practicing so that we can begin to, not begin, but sustain a more direct connection with the small letting goes and rebirths that keep us connected with our spirit. This also goes towards, in a space when we do actually feel the bigger deaths, that we can allow those aspects into our lives more as a natural part of what all of this is. Because right now we have a programming which kind of really alienates us from the energies that death have to offer as something very powerful and something very empowering to us, something healthy, something safe, something that is necessary. I won't go as far as say something that's desired, because that, that borderlines into things like concepts like suicide and whatnot. Not that I'm alluding to that, but the way the human mind is structured currently, those kind of things come up because our relationship with death currently actually has a really morbid theme. But death and the aspect of communication is very similar to the spectral tone in the way that it's kind of dissolving, erasing, trimming these aspects which keep the spirit locked down. It is the energy that allows the spirit to become free. So let's go over here to the human and the challenging power. And this, what comes up for me is, it's the enduring influence. And so that plays into the death energy because the death is transforming. It's consistently letting go, refreshing the page, this kind of energy to whatever incarnationalism is present. Because something that is eternal cannot die. It is only something that is consistently incarnating in karma, in cycle. When it's cyclical, when it's continuing to move in that causality, it is subject to death. When something like the spirit is beyond death, it can never die. It can take on form, but it's only form that is perceiving form. And so therefore, the wind's natural challenge is the influential nature represented by the human. And so again, influences, free will, wisdom, all these aspects play into how what I call the myriad, even though I find the monkey more directly represents the myriad, but that's more on the level of like conceptuality or mentality or mythos. The human can also be the reflection of the monkey in the way that it embodies the mythos. It embodies a legend. It embodies a story and creates an identity. So while the monkey is more like inspiration because we talk about stories, we talk about imagination, we talk about illusion, the human is more influence because there's more of an energy and illusion embodied in a form, and that creates an identity. And so much so that it is far more influential because it has a continuum behind it and will backing it up. And so the death energy plays in because these patterns can be so that it challenges communication. Maybe, a couple of beings are attempting to communicate, to share, to connect, but are not having an easy time doing so. And that's because there is an identity in the way, or a view of the world that is in the way. It is creating a disharmony because the subtle vibrations are not connecting. The spirits are not joining, or the individual humans are not seeing each other on the spirit level. Again, that's where the death energy today comes in, because these processes are being guided by an aspect of that letting go. There are parts of it that are dying or are being called to die so that the spirit energy can, in fact, connect, so the spirit can be seen. And this whole thing is that enduring spirit. Again, because the spirit is the heart of the matter, but these different aspects, like the human actually comes back in. Oh, sorry, not the human, but the earth comes back in. And it's beautiful that it's across from the human and guided by death, because the death energy, of course, like we're saying, was trimming the hedges, right? And it's like the human itself is the hedge. And so that shape is shifting. And so the earth is the one helping navigate the nuances and complexities of that labyrinth so as to bring illumination to the parts where the spirit can come out and the spirit cannot come out. And so then the death energy is, acting in that energy. Oh, it can't come out here? Well, let's maybe clip that, right? Maybe it's all about it can't come out really anywhere. And so there's a death to a connection. You know what? It's time to break up with this person. We can't connect. Whatever, done deal. Or it's time to end the conversation. It doesn't matter. Death comes in infinite formats, big and small, from simply the ending of a meal to the ending from one thought to another, down to, the ending of this wave spell, and the ending of a human life or a physical life. And all of those have equal value. Even though someone would say, you're fucking nuts, thinking that the death of my, my loved husband has the same value as a shifting thought. And I think, well, yes, it does. The only thing that to you makes the death of your husband more valuable is you are more attached. You are more invested. You have more energy woven into and have created an interdependent complex. Therefore, when that shift occurs, you are simply more affected. This brings me right back to the human energy of influence and human. So you can see how human, spirit, death are also playing a role together. But the energy of death is in fact non-personal. The energy of death itself is a very pure, non-personal, very innocent structure, flow, presence. The only thing that ever will make us suffer is our attachment and the inability to let things go. Now, again, this is not me saying that, like ancient Hindu texts or, East Indian practices or other kind of enlightened doctrine, that one should strive for unattachment. On quite the contrary. In fact, myself, I am actually an advocate for being able to feel our emotions fully and not hide from anything. And so that is what's important to you, is simply what's important to you. The only thing that I'm pointing out is a mechanic, is a function. Very much like the electric tone when we describe it to a light switch and the relationship between the light bulb. Death doesn't inherently have any emotion attached to it. And I find valuable for us, this is that human's wisdom, to be able to separate things into the functioning layers that they all appropriately have when working in a totality, when working through, say, our human experience. Like we have emotions, we have mind, we have awareness. Those are three functions, and they are in fact separate, even though they're tied in as a single fluid experience. And as we can begin to pause and take that space. Now, this is bringing me into the storm, because pausing and taking that space is like the eye in the storm. And these things that I'm kind of defining here, that are being defined here, are like the storm, the cloud itself. That may be a cloud of experiences all together. And we can take that moment to, with our free will, with our intention, take that kind of step back or that pause and witness, instead of, say, reacting or being led on a flow. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. Being led on a flow that may let's just pretend for this moment that flow is self-destructive, because let's say we're talking about challenging communication. And so that flow potentially can be self-destructive. And the reason it would be is because you're not at the forefront of your free will. You're reacting to a situation. You're not consciously acting. You're being triggered. And so that's only going to lead you unconsciously into suffering. And so through a negative aspect, things are going to go towards that death energy. But they could consciously go towards that by recognizing yourself. Okay, where am I? Taking that time to breathe, being able to recognize the engagement that you're in, and being able to recognize the different layers that are showing up. Oh, what is the mind that is present? What are the emotions? What are the triggers? What is really trying to be said? Where are you? Where is the other person? What can I or can I not receive? And so this is like the eye of the storm. Now it's the magnetic storm, so we're unifying an energy, right? So one aspect of this whole kind of channel is about enduring an energy. The storm is unifying. So I find this is a very beautiful aspect of like recognizing the layers as the unified object instead of necessarily being brought into that unified object as a cloud. See, as a cloud, it's more of a chaos. But as a unification, it is recognition of all the different participating single units as a totality. And so that's recognizing the one in the many as a single presence, as a single force. And so I also feel that the eye of the storm is also symbolized by the wind in the aspect of that, like that tunnel of breath. Noticing, if you do breath practice, the relationship between the breath patterns and the mind, the breath patterns and the emotions, the breath patterns and how the body is either tensing or not tensing. The way that we allow and embody our breath becomes key to our wisdom and understanding and embodiment of authentic self and healthy self. Almost all conditions in the world, including terminal cancers, can in fact be summed up to a process of breath healing and breath embodiment. Because when you properly go into the nuances of the breath, major and minor and medium nuances, you begin to unlock vital pranic networks. And whether you believe this or not doesn't matter, because there are many scientific and factual elements that can prove this, as well as many esoteric principles that bring this to bear, including many pragmatic practices, which I have seen myself. And there are many stories and experiences which others who lead and guide these breath practices have seen firsthand. And yes, things like the curing of cancer, and yes, curing the things like diabetes, are all about how your energy is moving. We, on the mental, emotional, physical kind of levels, we embody our own blockages. A belief system will be reflected in the body. One's own traumas that have become worldviews can become sicknesses in the soul, which then becomes mal-energies, maladies, sicknesses in the body. And so the most functional aspect to be able to heal any of these is in fact proper breathing. So simple and so profound. So profound, actually, that the human being doesn't want to accept it, because we have a world of such complexity that we think the only way to cure something so out of our reach and so terminal is by a massive complex procedure. But this is simply not. This is not so. And in this way, in the oracle, the breath's final expression as the cosmic wind is, the breath will endure, the breath waits for you. This breath is cosmic. This breath is eternal. This breath waits in the heart and center of all things. And as many reincarnations you may have, one day you will find that breath and you will forever be joined. And in this way, you will become complete. Stay tuned for the Mind Pyramid meditation section of today's episode of 1320 Time Stream.